Welcome back to another video surrounding the MPT Strategy Masters tournament. I'm your host, Hadrada, and in this video I'm going to showcase the maps for the tournament to you. If you haven't heard the gist about the event and aren't sure yet how it's going to work, make sure to check the previous video before coming back here. This video will only show the maps that are able to be played in the event. In case you forgot, there's 6 maps that are custom prepared maps that I've made for this event, and a 7th randomly generated map that will be different every single time. A fully random MPT map that is going to be. But now let's head on to the first of the 6 prepared maps, which is going to be Alesia. And you can see right here in the mini preview, it's going to be a map that is played on one single continent, and there's going to be an opportunity to boat around the x-axis of the map. But let's take a closer look at the map itself. This is what it looks like. Pretty small continent, and the interesting thing is I've marked the spawn locations of each teams by the same color. So it is a map where 2 players spawn isolated, faced with, well, 2 or 3 enemy players, depending how you look at it. And they start with a city, size 1, that has walls in it. So that is to simulate the siege of Alesia, in case you were wondering. So both teams start with 1 player that's completely isolated up against a large number of enemies. And it'll come down to, who's able to hold on better, which team can get the first kills, or which team gets the higher score. It's standard MPT rules after all. But this is what the map looks like. You can also see the rest distribution. You can see where the bonus grasslands are. And of course, I will also upload all of these maps into a Google Drive where you can download them to practice with them. But this is the first map, Alesia. It's going to be a defensive map for these 2 players that start with a walled city, and then 4 players surrounding them. And we'll see. I think it could be interesting. The second map is going to be Clontarf, and you can see right there it's a very different one. It's basically 3 islands where players are going to be faced in a 1v1 situation with an enemy, but the islands are connected by a small land bridge with the opportunity to boat between them. So this is the Clontarf map, and as I said, there's 3 islands of 1v1. The map is exactly symmetrical as well, and again the colors indicate which teams or which starting spots belong to the same teams. There's some land bridges there, and in case it's not clear, the land bridges are not all marsh. There's some grasslands in there, so you're able to potentially plant canal cities there if you want to go for some funny plays, or just pump score like I know all of you are gonna do anyways. Nothing crazy about this map. Maybe the interesting part is that the middle island at the top, both players spawn with horses on their starting location, and there's only 1 iron on that island, and it's in the very middle. Whereas in the bottom 2 islands, the players spawn with iron in their capital radius, but there's no horses nearby. There's only 1 horse on each of the bottom 2 islands, and it's also on that hill in the middle. So that could be an interesting aspect of this map. So basically a map with 3 1v1 setups. The third map of the tournament is going to be Greenland, and that is definitely the most unusual MPT map, I would say, because players start on islands, and we've got that continent in the middle. And I gotta say, this map on the mini map right here kind of looks like an upside down Christmas tree. I'm not sure if you see it the same way I do, but it is supposed to be Greenland. Now let's check out what the map actually looks like. It's also going to be a map where boating around the x-axis will be possible with these volcanic chains. And we've got an interesting setup right here, because we've got that Greenland type shape continent in the middle where all the horses and all the iron are going to be at. And then players start on pretty subpar islands themselves. It's a bunch of fish there and some game, so food should be enough to get 1, 2, or 3 cities going there. But if you want any res and if you want to get more score, you're going to have to settle the middle. And the setup here is pretty straightforward. 1 team spawns all on the left, 1 team spawns all on the right, and it's going to be about colonizing that middle continent. Especially interesting how the bottom two players will play that one, because they're obviously very vulnerable to landings from their respective opponents. Also, there's some huts on this map, as is the case with every map. And yeah, this is going to be our third map right here. Map number 4 is going to be Iceland. This is likely the most standard MPT map, I would say. It's, again, just one continent in the middle, with boating around the x-axis being possible. Pretty straightforward, nothing crazy about this map. If we take a look here, the problem with this map is that we're looking at Iceland quite some time after its colonization. In case you weren't familiar, about 100 years after it was colonized by the Northmen, Iceland was already almost bare of trees. They kind of chopped down all the forests over there. So this is the same thing on this map. There's little trees over here, but a lot of bonus grasslands. There's a big mountain range in the middle, and a pretty straightforward map overall. The interesting part here is that the top two players in the north spawn with 2 iron. The bottom 2 players in the south, they spawn with 2 horses. And the players in the middle, each team spawn with 1 horse and 1 iron nearby. So maybe some trading could be beneficial on this map. Overall, though, it's not a crazy map. Just 1 team on the left again, 1 team on the right again. And yeah, that's pretty straightforward. That's going to be Iceland. Now to map number 5, which is going to be Myeongnyang. Of course, Korean Strait. That is very interesting, by the way, the tides or the currents work. Thus, I've tried to actually create a little map that you can see right there. That's pretty interesting. You've got a mainland where there's 4 players spawning there, but then you've got a small island on the side where 2 players spawn, and there's a channel in between, the Myeongnyang Strait. Let's check out what the map looks like. So we've got Team North against Team South, and there's plenty of resources. It's a very fertile land there in Korea, and of course boating opportunities are going to be plentiful. There's no volcanic islands around this, so all the boating you want to do will have to be made around these 2 islands. The resource situation isn't really anything special, although the players spawning on the left side have their iron and horse pretty close by, whereas the players on the right, on the bigger island, they have a little bit further ways to some of their resources. So we'll see if that makes an impact at all. That's going to be Myeongnyang, the map number 5. Lots of food there, and oh, curious to see how that'll play out. Again, boating is going to be very possible. Okay, finally, the last remaining map is going to be Silk Road, and that's the one that I think could be very interesting. We see we've got a big main continent with all the players spawning on it. And we've got 1 chain of islands around the x-axis again, where you can boat around. The map will look as follows. We've got Team North against Team South, and we've got roads. The players spawn relatively far apart, but we've got roads connecting the players in the 4 corners. And that's going to be pretty interesting to see. The roads don't go all the way until the starting locations. There's always a 1 or 2 tile gap between the starting locations and the roads. But the roads are meant to be used to attack or to trade with your team, because, in case you can't see, the players spawn with 3 iron or 3 horse in the corners, and no strategic resources for the 2 middle players. So you'll have to make use of these roads to trade with your teammates, at least at some point. Also, a ton of luxuries on this map. They also tend to spawn in sets of 3, so the trading aspect can really be utilized well on this one. Again, that's going to be Silk Road as the 6th map there. Lots of luxuries, and resource trading is possible. They're a big continent, so maybe military maneuvers also possible, and boating as well, as always on these types of maps. So that's the 6 maps. I will post all of them again on a Google Drive, so you can download them, check them out in detail, and practice with them as well. And again, I just want to mention the sign-up requirements here. If you want to take part in this event and you are absolutely sure that your team is able to play on the dates that I've posted, and then send an email to sllfj@gmx.de. Tell me which weekends your team is able to play on, so you can choose if your team maybe can't make it for the semifinal 1, then tell me, okay, we can only play the 2nd October weekend, we can only play for the semifinal number 2. But you will of course, all the teams will have to be able to play on the final weekend, which is the 3rd weekend of October. If you've got any questions about the schedule, about the game times and the weekends corresponding, when which semifinal or final will be played, you can find all of that information in the first video that I've posted surrounding this tournament. So check out that previous video in that case, and mention in your email who is the 3 starting players of your team and who's the substitute player if you have one. Also tell me who's the captain of your team that will be in charge of picking the civilizations and the maps, and tell me who is the secondary captain in case the first one can't make it for a game. So if you've got all of that figured out, take your time with that, it's really no hurry. Then you can send an email to my address that I will also put in the description, so you can just copy paste it as well. And I'm looking forward to a bunch of applications for this tournament. I'm hoping it'll be a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed the look at these maps, and yeah, that's it.